Hey everybody, my name is ScatZack123 and I'm joined by...
Andrew?
L, aka Bobfish.
And toast.
Toast. It sounds very good right about now. I still have not eaten today.
Sounds very delicious. Goes great with a cup of tea.
Oh yes.
And a crumpet.
Anyways,
And buttered scones.
we're talking about stuff that is or isn't happening in the gaming worlds. It's still post E3, which means everybody's kind of quiet. The fanboy wars are enraged right now since all the consoles are out and everybody's knows a little bit or a lot about them. So
Brewing in the dark corners of the internet.
yeah, we're the PC guys and we're watching it like a bar fight and we're bidding on like who's gonna win and stuff like that. So
And eating some popcorn.
yep, exactly.
Always good to have on hand.
Yes, very. Anyways, let's get started with... I don't even know what to get started with. Let's talk about what everyone's playing. So, what are you guys playing? Toast. What are you playing?
Right now, I'm actually playing a bit of DayZ. Actually, just well, how can I start it off? Well, playing with a few friends and all that. Because obviously it's going to be a better experience if you play with friends.
You get
And
killed
actually,
from halfway across the map.
Funny note, I actually just died.
Huh.
Oh well.
It happens.
This
It
is
happens.
me when I die in DayZ. I throw my computer out the window and never play it again.
Oh damn it! You must rack up a big bill.
Yeah.
Must really rack up a big bill with all those computers.
How do you manage to put your computer together so quickly?
I
To be right back in the next round.
Magic.
hire lots of midgets to work for me.
I see. I've been trying to get the same effect from my cats. I'm trying to teach them to make me a cup of tea, and they just sort of look at me and ask, "What the hell are you doing?" And then I start to wonder, hang on, did that cat just talk? And then the cat looks at me and it's like, yeah, of course I just talked. What do you expect? It's like, okay, I was just checking. But what's that?
Nice. Very nice. Alright,
So have they fixed a lot of the things with DayZ? Like, I knew there were some complaints back when it first launched.
it was
Yeah.
terrible when it launched. It was like,
Oh, yeah.
it was unplayable.
Yeah, well, there was recently a patch there in I think May. It's fixed a few, different things, but obviously it's still like in a very well, I can't even really say in my experience like it's not even really in an alpha. It's more like a prototype in my opinion still. Well, you know what I mean. But
Proof of concept.
yeah, it's got a long
Like
way to go.
testing
Right.
concept.
I mean,
But there was something like people were complaining about the map size or something. Like, the creators were boasting about all these things that were going to be
No.
in the game, and then
That's
everybody's
the
like,
War Z.
"Eh."
That was War Z, not DayZ. The one that was
Ah.
recently renamed to... What was it
Infestation.
renamed to?
Infected
Infestation, yeah.
Yep.
survivor stories.
They're all Z's.
That's the one.
yeah.
Yep. that game is horrific. It went on sale for $3 on Steam, and everybody was like, "You still shouldn't buy it." So
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was in the top sellers for the day, but
well, it's $3, and you know how people are when they see something for $3. They're like, "Oh, what the hell?" So
That's how I've ended up with a large number of my games on Steam. It'll be like,
Oh,
Quake.
yes.
I have no interest in Quake, but then one day they sold the entire set for like £2.50, which is about $3.20. I was like,
why
what
not?
did I just do? Oh wait, where did those games just come from? Wait, why has money just gone out of my PayPal?
Valve uses mind control.
They do.
Oh,
They
yes.
definitely do. Somebody once joked just recently at Pixel Judge that that Gaben is going to try and take over the world. He's going to run for Emperor of the Universe. And like, why would you bother? We all worship him anyway. He wouldn't need to ever make an effort to, and we just hand him everything willingly.
Exactly.
We throw hundreds of
You know,
dollars.
people would pay for him to become the emperor of the world. It's like, shut up and take my money.
Literally.
But if he becomes the Emperor of the World, then he's gonna have no excuse to make Half-Life free.
Oh.
Oh god.
Yes. Well, we all know
There
it's
would be
coming
riots.
eventually. Here's my prediction regarding Half-Life 3. Because it's been that long and we've had so many credible sources that have confirmed its release, Valve are going to announce it. They're going to say, yes, we're doing it. Gaben himself will go on, give a big presentation with gameplay footage and everything, and for weeks afterwards, the internet will be like, yeah, we believe you. Go away. And then they'll release more, and they'll release like an alpha build, and everybody will be like, come on, we know you're just playing with us. It's not happening. And then one day it'll just turn up on Steam, and we'll be like, oh, we were telling the truth all
New
along.
releases, Half-Life Episode 3.
Oh, yes.
But until it actually arrives, even after it arrives, people will probably still think it's a joke. They'll be downloading it and playing it and think, no, this has to be a joke. I'll go around this corner and the G-Man will be sat there and be like, ah, and the game will delete itself or something.
Upload a virus to your computer.
Yeah.
Steal all your cash, steal everything out of your Steam wallet.
It's Valve's...
It's their master plan to take over the world. Yep.
Use it as a master virus to infect government facilities and launch nukes.
I could actually see that happening just for the lulz.
Exactly.
It's already happening, man. It's a conspiracy.
Maybe it's already happened.
It's the Illuminati.
Maybe we're already hooked into the Valve tricks.
Yeah, they tried to infect the PS3 with Portal 2, but hasn't happened yet. But we may see it with the new console releases, but I mean, we'll see.
Guys, you want to hear a joke?
Go ahead.
Half-Life 3, Xbox One exclusive.
Doubt it. Well, you never know. Well, if you want, if you
The
want,
world would end.
Yeah, the world would definitely end. Is what I was going to say.
Yes, it would.
If you want to see the world on fire, definitely announce that.
Yep. Exactly. Anyways, I've been playing Company Heroes 2.
Quite a lot of people have. There've been a lot of mixed opinions about that. Some people saying it was fantastic, and some people can't get over the sort of the dissonance between the severity of the gameplay with the more not light-hearted as such, but the more gamey aspect of it creates a bit of a disconnect for a lot of people.
It's not as like in Company Heroes 1, if you ran up to an MG, for example, it would kill you instantly. Right? In this game, you can take your squad, throw them right next to the MG, and it will take anywhere from 30 to 40 seconds to wipe out your entire squad.
What?
It's not realistic at all, because it says like your troops are pinned down and they can't fire, and they crawl on their stomach and they can't run away, and basically they're just there, and you see the MG bullets going through their bodies, but they're not dying.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unimmersive. But that's also a good thing, because if you want to, like, distract somebody, just throw a squad out there, have them pinned down, and have the guys focus on them for 30, 40 seconds and flank them or something.
Well, from what I understand, they were going with that kind of as a motif. They wanted to give a bit more of a disconnect from it. It's just, it sounds like they've gone a bit too far with it. Instead of it being an interesting gameplay mechanic, it's become something that breaks the overall feel. Because with the plot it has, from what I understand, it gets kind of a little bit heavy and a bit too almost preachy in places, and that's where the problem really comes in.
I haven't played the campaign. I've only played the multiplayer, because that's the only thing that really interests me. I played the first level, and the cutscenes are hideous, to say the least. But the Company Hero 1's cutscenes were definitely a lot higher quality than these ones. The ground texture is just... it's terrible in the cutscenes. I don't really like to complain about cutscenes, but it's really bad. And the acting in the cutscenes is mediocre. I just recommend staying away from the entire campaign and just play multiplayer. But there are fun advantages. For example, like, there's only one mode in public searching, like if you're finding a public match, which is capture your points, and it's like capture the hold the flags, and it depletes your enemy's point counter. The thing is, the Germans always lose. And the reason why is because Germans are so effective mid to late game that the Russians just run in, capture the objectives, that the Germans they have to wait because they cannot counter effectively until they get their mid to heavy tanks, which take forever. And by that time, you already lost 90% of your points.
Sounds a bit like they tried to go for a realistic approach there. The Germans losing the war.
In the fact, yes.
Yeah.
But from a gameplay perspective, it's frustrating because
Oh, yes.
basically you're like, oh, we're playing as Germans. Well, GG. Because that's basically it. Because you're not effective. Like, your infantry squads have less. They're more accurate with their rifles, but that isn't necessarily true either because the Russians have more firepower early game.
So it's unbalanced rather than misbalanced.
Yeah.
Yes. And the thing is, if you're German and you're playing a game of annihilation, which is literally kill everything and kill the enemy base, you're going to win. The reason why is the Soviets can take all the points they want, but they are not effective late game, which means once the Germans get their heavy panzer tanks out, they're the
Panzer.
the Tiger tanks, I should say, which are the heavy brutal tanks, which one shot can annihilate an entire infantry squad from its heavy gun. You're screwed because they pump them out fast.
But it's getting to that point for the Germans that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yes. So basically, if you want to win any capture the flag game, go as Russian. And if you want to win an annihilation game, go as German. The problem is there's no annihilation in public matchmaking. You only have the capture the flag. That's it.
That's kind of disappointing.
So you have to play a private match in order to do that. The good thing about your private matches is you do gain XP during those matches, which does allow for boosters. Sadly. So you can get like 3 guys to just spam infantry and you just mow them down for the XP. And there are unfortunately a lot of boosters on the game. You can go up to level 100. I'm at level 42 right now because I've been playing for almost 30 hours now. And one of the other guys I normally play with, they are level 70 and 60, and yeah, it's addicting in the fact that it's fun to annihilate people, I guess you could say, but it is definitely extremely frustrating when you lose. Unlike StarCraft or stuff like that, it doesn't take skill, it takes time. Basically, if you want an effective army, all you need is time, because your resources automatically regenerate per second, and basically you have a set number of manpower which cannot be raised or decreased by capture points throughout the map. So basically, if you want to counterattack with your infantry, all you have to do is wait, because you have a set number of infantry points which are automatically regenerated, which cannot be taken away from you. So it is a little hard. The Germans are definitely outnumbered. The Germans just fail miserably at pub games unless you were fighting the dumbest Russians on the planet. Besides that, you basically win, because the Russians have cheaper tanks, they have cheaper infantry units, they have more units per squad. Basically, it makes them, I wouldn't say less effective, but they are definitely, when it comes to like their armor and stuff, they're definitely outmatched by Germans, because their heavy tanks won't last a minute against a Tiger tank. So it's just unbalanced. It will be patched, hopefully. But for right now, I don't recommend you playing public multiplayer. Definitely play private. matches for the moment. But yeah, that's Company of Heroes.
Yeah.
Too.
What about the co-op? What about the co-op aspects? Like, because I've heard that there was actually co-op missions in it as well. Did you...
Yeah, I played some co-op with a couple people on TeamSpeak, and we were playing. It is hard as hell. I mean, it is brutal. Like, one of the missions you have to survive for 9 days. 9 days, day and night cycle. And that match lasted us almost 3.5 hours.
You see, wow.
And, it was basically you were playing as the Russians, I believe, or was it the Germans? I'm not sure. And basically, all you had to do is hold these center points, and if you lose enough points, you lose, basically. Which, I hate games like that. I hate RTSs like that. I hate it with a burning passion, because you can be an effective strategic master when it comes to stuff, but if you don't rush, you're going to lose, because you have to take those objectives ASAP, or you will die and lose.
Yeah. So is there no difficulties in it at all as well?
There's recruit, captain, and general, or something equivalent to that.
I see.
It's like I said, it's hard as hell. Matches take forever because it's hard because they just keep replenishing their resources because they gain double the XP, or not the XP, the resources you do. Since they're AI, so they just spam stuff at you, and you just get overwhelmed, I guess you could say. It's definitely not fair. Yeah, it's challenging. Yeah. It's brutal. It's not fun, I guess. It's frustrating. It's a headache.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't sound fun if you're going to get overwhelmed like that. Like, I mean, they didn't really take approach of trying to reward you and then making it progressively harder, because...
Yeah, it's... Yeah. I mean, if you're into it, I'm not a hardcore RTS guy, but I love World War II, and I liked Company of Heroes, so I was like, what the fuck? I guess you could, why not? YOLO. I'll play it, and I played it, and I enjoy it playing with friends, of course, but just alone, it's frustrating. It's a headache.
It sounds like they've made the same mistake that a lot of people do. Most commonly, we recognize it in MMOs, but they're not the only games that do it, where it's grinding to make it longer rather than making it challenging.
Yes.
Rather than having slow, incremental updates to give you an incentive to keep going, it's just, let's just massacre you so that you get through dogged determination. And most people don't like that. They want to feel like they are actually getting a little bit better every time.
It's basically you're either going to win really, really good, or you're going to lose really, really, really bad. That's every game. There's no game... I shouldn't say there's no game. There's very rarely any game where you feel like, oh, we did good, but they were doing well as well, and we're like in the middle, and we drew a line of conflict where our troops are always engaging. No.
You shall not pass!
Basically.
This level.
So, that's Company of Heroes 2. I played The Last of Us, but we can't talk about it, because this is PC, and nobody likes to talk about consoles.
Actually, speaking of consoles, there was something that's been kicking around in my head for a while. With the way Microsoft have reneged on their always online DRM, what's that going to mean for Microsoft as far as a publisher are concerned? What's that going to do for them publishing to the PC? So originally they were talking about how they weren't going to have the same sort of access for indies. They had to go through them, so everything was going to be on Xbox Live. But now that they've changed, it means we might see something more akin to what we currently have with the smaller titles being ported across to Steam. Like, what was it, Schools of the Shoguns, which was supposed to be Windows 8 exclusive. That popped up last week.
Yes.
So,
if any developers were smart, they would just go directly to Steam.
Exactly.
And dealing with Microsoft is just a hassle. Microsoft is apparently trying to incorporate indies more with the Xbox One platform, but they would just be smart to put it on Steam, just because Valve seems to be so indie friendly.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Rather than actually bringing indies over to Xbox One, it feels like what they're trying to do is sucker them and trap them into it, rather than encourage them to be there. It's like, we're going to grab you and keep you here, and that's not good for the industry as a whole. Never mind for the individual studios.
That's always sorry. That's always confused me about the indie scene, because just like you said, like Microsoft, like I'm sure probably some people have heard about Phil Fish with like Fez. You couldn't get a patch out on the Xbox. I mean, but like on PC, obviously it's more indie friendly. Like you have the likes of Dazura and Indiegogo and all that, which like actually offer real good help to indie developers. You'd make them it makes you wonder, like, why would they actually want to be like exclusive to like a console or something like that? I'm not hating on the consoles, but it's just, you'd wonder sometimes like why they don't go through that instead first.
I honestly don't understand why any developer would go exclusively to one platform. Apart from cost, of course. If you can't afford to do it to more
all
than
I
one,
can
that's fine,
say
but
for that is because the reason why they're going for one platform is because that platform called them back and say, hey, if you make us exclusive, we'll throw some money at you.
But the amount they're going to make, think about it. If they can afford to develop for more than one platform, surely that would make more sense than the one lump sum that they're going to get from whichever, the PlayStation or whichever one it is. Now, of course, I understand first-party developers, like you mentioned Naughty Dog, they work for Sony. Fine, I completely understand that. But it's companies like Konami only making Metal Gear for the PlayStation. Why? They obviously have the money to do it, and they know that there's a market for it on other consoles, other platforms. So why limit themselves like that?
Metal Gear's coming to the PC.
It is now, but number 4 is still, for the moment, PlayStation 3 only. I've never understood why anybody would do that, especially the smaller companies, because they need the indies. They need to get as much as they possibly can, and I've heard that the problem with patching a lot of the indie games on the Xbox 360 is that Microsoft actually charged them to be able to do that. And how do you expect somebody who's made this in their bedroom in their spare time? How do you expect them to get the money together to pay the licensing for you? They're not just hamstringing the indies there, but they're giving themselves a bad reputation for allowing buggy games to be released on their platform. Microsoft don't seem to think past the initial money they get. They don't seem to realize the knock-on effect it's going to have. And that does concern me somewhat for what they'll be doing with the PC in the future.
Well, Microsoft has changed their policy. Phil Fish was actually pissed about that. Microsoft changed their policy about indies updating their games on Microsoft, so they're not charging, I think, anymore. And that wasn't publicly known. And so Phil Fish just, got really upset about that. And as for why indies would go console, one console specific, I actually had some sort of experience with this. The creators of Mutant Blob, have you heard of that?
In passing.
Well, so I was talking to them, and I'd asked them. Apparently, their game was showing up on the Steam database, and I asked them, can I have a comment about this? And they're like, well, they said something, and it's like, well, we're with Sony currently because I think Sony is helping them out. They're giving them developer kits and whatnot. And so I think a part of why some people go console specific is because these companies do approach these indie developers and say, hey, if you put games out for our platform, we'll help you out and we'll get you started and whatnot. So,
but how often does it actually work with a lot of them? That's the thing that worries me. It sounds good on paper, saying you come with us, we'll give you money, but what happens after that?
Yeah.
I think some of them don't realize what happens after that. They're like, oh my god, I'm going to be on the Xbox 360, everybody's going to see me, and so I think maybe some of them are just thinking about the now and then. I mean, the now instead of the future of what am I going to do about updating and whatnot.
Yeah, it's kind of like a roping in, but I was actually going to mention before, I think actually Microsoft actually have you said like did they actually drop the charges for the 360 and rethink?
So it seems that they have, yeah.
Apparently,
I don't
for
know
the
for the 360.
for the Xbox One, they said if you're releasing an XBLA title, that they're not going to charge for patches next generation. Now, the concern I also have, also with the Xbox One, is Microsoft saying like 4 months down the line, well, hey, congrats, you have the Xbox One now, you got a taste of it. Now we're just gonna patch it and make it so you have to check in now, and we have to, we're gonna do the DRM, and we're gonna have...
Yeah.
Yes,
You're gonna have all the games you have, you're kind of gonna lock them, and it's like giving a dog a bone and then taking that dog and putting him in a shelter, kind of.
That's what a lot of people are starting to think.
That reminds me.
Microsoft would. Oh, go ahead.
That reminds me of what Sony did beforehand, before like the infamous PSN hack. Like I remember like back in when the PS3 was released in 2006, 2007. Like one of the selling points was that you can install a custom OS on the PS3.
Mm.
But after the infamous PSN hack and that USB sort of thing happened, well, I do remember like that was taken out, and one of the selling points was actually obviously taken out of the system.
They've since backpedaled on that somewhat and said that we didn't advertise it. It was never a selling point, but it was an advertised feature.
Mm.
The hack came about as after they removed it. That was done in retaliation to it. But yeah, it was a lot to do with that. That personally, I didn't have a massive deal with that. The only problem I had with it is that they made it a mandatory update. They didn't make it because if you didn't update to it, you wouldn't be able to go online anymore. And I could see Microsoft doing the same thing, but a lot more aggressively.
Oh yes.
So they do have this. Sorry, go on.
Microsoft would be really stupid to do that. I can just imagine now a lot of gamers on hearing that news just rage quitting and taking their Xbox Ones to GameStop and buying a PS4.
A lot would, but a lot wouldn't. That's the problem. I mean, think about it. When we said they're going to start charging for Xbox Live, like nobody will do that. It's since become one of the most successful online services in the world.
The thing is, Microsoft's already got your money. If you buy one, for example, and you trade it in GameStop, Microsoft doesn't get any of the money. It goes 90% to GameStop. So
yeah,
I could see customers leaving, but they already have your initial money, so they honestly could care less.
That tends to be all Microsoft ever seem to look at, is what they can get immediately.
Yep.
Yep.
But anyways,
point.
Back to PC stuff. What are you playing, Al?
Nothing at the moment, actually. I've just finished Mag Runner, though, a couple of days ago. Which, it's funny you mentioned Portal earlier, and imagine if H.P. Lovecraft had a love affair with GLaDOS, and then they locked it in a basement and beat it mercilessly for 50 years, and that'd give you a rough idea of what Mag Runner is like. It literally is Cthulhu meets Portal.
Nice.
Yeah, granted you don't have portals in this case, you have magnetic fields, which kept frustrating me because it's like red attracts red and green attacks green. I kept trying to do it, opposites attract when it comes to magnetism. That was just one of those things that got me. I understand why they did it. It'd be easier for most people to remember red and red go together and green and green go together. But it was a fascinating game, and not for everybody, and I think it'll turn a lot of people away, but I really enjoyed it.
That's good.
Massively so. It's definitely influenced a lot by Portal. And they didn't even try and hide it.
Nice.
It's a great pastiche.
Is there some influences from Cube as well? Because
yes.
I tend to... Yes.
As in the films?
No, I mean actually the actual Cube games. The actual Cube. The QUBE.
Oh, that I don't
Cube?
know.
Yes. Oh no, the Cube game.
QUB.
Yeah,
I don't know about that, but the films, the Cube series, I felt a lot of influences from that as well, particularly in visual design. I don't know how familiar you are with those films, but they're interesting. They're very interesting films. They get a group of people, they put them inside this giant cube made up of smaller cubes that move around. And some cubes have traps in them and some don't. I think Saw, with like $200 billion to make his traps with, and that's pretty much what you get with the cube.
Nice.
Much.
Andrew, what have you been playing?
I have sadly been playing Minecraft recently.
Anything else?
Well, I just downloaded the Humble Indie Bundle, the current Humble Indie Bundle, and I tried out Oregon Trail, and it's pretty awkward when you try and go to shoot zombies because it wants you to like do a slingshot type thing where you move the mouse behind your person and try to aim that way. And it's like, why can't I just aim normally with my mouse?
Nice.
It is a rather odd game, but I've noticed one thing about that. Any game that has the random event, X person destroyed X amount of money by sitting on it and crushing it. Enough said.
I remember playing the original Oregon Trail in 3rd grade on my computer in the computer lab. And
Wow.
I remember everybody was like, let's buy guns and ammo and never buy food. So we basically, our wagon was a fortified tank with no food, and we starved like 3 days in. And it was hilarious because the guys were like, because we used to have a round table, and it was a bunch of guys and a bunch of girls huddled around a computer, and we were like in 3rd and 4th grade. Well, no, I was in 2nd grade actually. Now that I think of it, and we would huddle around this one computer with a big CRT monitor that was terrible for your eyes, but we didn't care. And we were playing it, and all the girls were like, we need to buy food and medical supplies. And the guys were like, oh, we need muskets, and we need ammo, and we need gunpowder. And yeah, that game had a lot of memories.
Seems that the girls were right in the long run, huh?
Yeah, they were right in one retrospect. But yeah, it was a fun game to play with a bunch of people. But Oregon Trail, that game brought back a lot of memories.
But we're all right here. We have some toast, so we're not going to starve to death.
Oh, definitely not.
We'll just eat toast.
Hom nom nom.
Anyways,
Funny you should mention games in school, actually, because when I was in high school, in the UK we do it slightly differently. We have, where I am, we have primary school, which is up until 11, then you have high school for the last 5 years. When I was in high school during the IT classes, somebody from somewhere managed to get Lemmings on a floppy disk.
Nice.
A 3.5-inch, 1.44 megabyte floppy. So it should give you some idea of how far back we're going. So, of course, as soon as that turned up, everybody had that, and we never did any work. Everybody just played Lemmings all day.
I remember
the original Lemmings.
Yeah, I remember some kids used to install the original Halo, and we'd have LAN tournaments in our school.
Yeah, that would have been difficult for us because it was 1994, and our computers had 2 megabytes of RAM.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't have gone
megabytes.
far.
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the consoles had 515 megabytes or something, 512 megabytes of RAM, and we were like, oh, that's too little. And our childhoods consisted of 2 to 3 megabytes.
Yeah. I remember thinking that a 60 megabyte hard drive was enormous.
Yeah, and now I
remember the first time a 1 gigabyte turned, it was like nobody's ever going to need anything larger than that. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, why don't we have 10 terabytes yet?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we will in about another decade or so.
And now we have the next generation of consoles, which has 8 gigabytes of DDR5 and DDR3 RAM, and then we look at our computers, and I have 36 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. And
Wow.
I look at it, I'm like, why do I need all this RAM? And then I have 2 terabyte hard drives and a GTX 670, and I'm like, why do I need all this stuff?
Because the RAM actually is very useful if you're doing a lot of editing.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Oh, yes.
I definitely could agree.
I'm using only 6 gigabytes, and when I'm trying to edit anything longer than about 5 minutes, it takes for my computer just sort of goes, "No!" When it comes to actually, rendering it all, my CPU burns through it at a nice speed, but trying to get it to keep track of where everything is all at once, it just sort of falls over and dies.
Yeah.
And curls up into a little ball. So RAM is a lot more important than people realize. That's why we ended up with the "Hey, I upgraded your RAM" meme.
Download freeram.com.
Oh my god.
I remember I told my mom to do that once because she's like, why is my computer so slow? And me being like the IT in my family, I'm like, just go to downloadmoreram.com. And she bought it, and she went to the website, and it says download free RAM, and it says select your gigabytes of RAM, and she's like, 8 gigs should be enough, and she downloads it. She's like, my computer's still slow. And it's hilarious. But yeah. Anyways,
People do things like that.
Anyways, yeah, this week's been... The past few weeks have been lacking in news department. It's mostly just rumors and speculation, nothing confirmed. I mean, everyone announced their games, so...
I wouldn't say so much lacking. It's more that it's been... People have just been taking a breath and relaxing. There have been some interesting things and some pretty big things that have come out in the last few weeks. I mean, there was Satellite Rain was announced, was it yesterday, day before, which is a sequel or a remake of sorts to Syndicate. That's got a lot of people buzzing. Arma 3's gone into beta, which granted is still broken as all hell, but
Yeah.
it's Bohemia.
Oh yes.
But still, the point is that's finally happened now. They're a little bit later than some people would have liked, and not nearly as late as most people were asking, considering it's just broken.
Yeah.
But that's Arma for you. Bohemia have a habit of doing that. What else has been going on?
Leisure Suit the Leisure Suit Larry remake
There you
has
go.
been
That
loaded.
finally turned up. There was all the information with Baldur's Gate being pulled by Atari as it happened, which I found really bizarre. I thought it would be something to do with Wizards of the Coast. They're notorious for getting iffy about people using their intellectual properties, but Atari had it pulled down from, when was it? From, I forget the name of the place that they pulled it from.
From the Apple Store.
Yeah, and somewhere else as well.
Yeah, I've noticed.
It's still available, but only directly through Atari for the moment. I don't understand why they're doing that. That goes back to what we were saying earlier about limiting. It's like, why would you... I can understand in a way the principle of it is if you go directly through them, they're going to get more of the profits for it. But the way they go about doing that, they don't seem to learn that doing that just makes people think, well, we're not going to you because you're obviously just bullying everybody.
I hate to say this, but every company is all about the money. I hate to say it, if you're a Sony fanboy or a Microsoft fanboy, all they give a damn about is having your money.
Of course they do. Even Valve are about making money.
Valve,
the way Valve go about it.
Yeah, Valve is a little more consumer friendly about it, but they're out to make money. Everybody is.
Of course they are.
And,
I understand that,
Rightfully
but
so. They should be able to make their money. However,
exactly.
the way you treat the computers, the way you treat the consumers, is what makes your image.
Exactly.
Like Valve is very consumer friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And these other companies like EA and Microsoft just don't see that. They see the success in front of them of Valve, and they're like, DRM and always online and all this shit. And it's like,
DRM. Sorry, go ahead, carry on.
no, I was done.
Well, speaking of DRM, people often forget Steam is a form of DRM.
Oh yes, it is.
Yeah,
and it's an always online to a certain extent, but it's the way they do it. They don't shove it down your throat. It's an optional thing. You go there, you know that's what you're getting.
And the thing
it's not you get the game and then that as well.
To get Steam in the first place, you have to download it from the internet.
Exactly.
You don't have to buy a console from the internet or download it from the internet.
Yeah.
So that having Steam means you already have internet. With a console, I know loads of people that play it offline. And a console, you're buying a physical thing. Like, for example, you buy a computer, You don't have to go online with it, for example, but it's recommended.
It's also with Steam, once you've installed your game, you can then set to offline mode and still play the games.
That's
They don't require you to continually log in.
That's partially true. I was at a friend's house the other day, and I tried to play. I forgot the game I was trying to play.
There are some that still don't.
I tried to play like Saints Row the Third, and like they had to verify, for example.
Yeah.
And they said, well, you have to be connected to the internet. I was like, oh, great. I mean, it wasn't a big hassle, but it would be nice if But the thing is, Valve can't control it because it's THQ, or not THQ. THQ went
Volition.
by Volition and Deep Silver.
Deep Silver, that's it. Yep.
And they control it now. So, besides that, I'm not totally overly concerned about it. But Microsoft, I see what they're trying to do.
That's the worst part about it.
I respect
I can understand.
And I see what their vision is. They're just doing it terribly.
Yeah.
Like their interviews I've watched, they're like, do you want to come to the future of gaming? You need to come with us to the future of gaming. But the future of gaming's been here, and it's called Steam. And you need to figure that out. And you need to follow Steam's footsteps if you want to be successful in that area, because Steam is the only company that has done it and accomplished it without having 30 million fanboys down their throats threatening to set their offices on fire.
It's like the announcement for the Xbox One. The way they go about things is when that pause before he gave the name and that look on his face, he was such a smug son of a bitch. You just wanted to get him down on his knees and slap him in the face with your knob. And that's the way Microsoft go about it. It's the way a lot of them go about it. Microsoft, Activision, EA, they don't see us as consumers. They see us as the enemy. They have to fight us for our money. Whereas what Valve do is they make us want their things.
Oh yes. Very good in the marketing department. Very good.
Microsoft.
But even like aren't some developers like really upset about Valve sometimes when Valve does their sales?
Some of them are, yeah.
I can respect
one of the biggest,
that.
One of the biggest problem a lot of the developers or publishers seem to have is that, relatively speaking, Valve are very light on DRM, which annoys some people. But as far as this sales go, if they don't want their games to be sold, don't sell them. Surely it's better to have the game sell 100 copies at a minute profit than not sell any at all.
I can also see where people... The thing is, Valve just can't say, well, you uploaded your game to our servers, for example, and we sell it, and you get profit of it. We're just going to control the price of it at any time. I'm pretty sure Valve contacts the developer prior and says, hey, we want to put your Steam on sale for this weekend. Do you want to do it? If not, we can go to somebody else.
Right.
Oh yes.
I highly doubt they're just like, oh, well, you gave us permission to sell it, so we can control the price.
Well, what's his face? Is it Phil Fish, was it?
Yeah, Phil Fish.
As he pointed out when he blew up recently on Twitter, he set the price of the game on Steam. So he called everybody fucking ingrates and said he was going to set it to £99 or something. And he's able to do that. So it's not like you just put it up there and then Valve take complete control of it. If we put something on there, we choose how much it would sell for. So I can understand that some of them would be irritated at sales, but I mean, if you have a problem with Valve selling your game that cheap, don't agree to it. Surely there'd be a way to do that. I don't think Valve are just going to sit around and say, right, well, we're never going to stock anything you do ever again, because that would hurt them. So
yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff about Valve not accept. That's the thing with the Greenlight. Bringing it up is that Total Biscuit was talking about it a while ago, about Steam Greenlight and how it's a popularity contest more than it is quality contest, I guess you could say. It's basically,
I can understand that.
It's basically whatever game has the biggest following will get on Steam. And once that game is on Steam, then what? I mean, the game could be the worst game ever imaginable, but it got accepted, which Steam says it has to sell because that's what they paid money for, because you have to pay money to get it on Greenlight.
$100, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is $100 to submit your product.
But at the same time, it's like with the Kickstarter, when you donate to a Kickstarter, you don't know what it's eventually going to turn out to be. So,
yes.
As they say, you pay your way, you take your chances. It might end up being terrible, but there's the downside of it is that you might look at something and think it looks great, and then it'll turn out to be crap. But, well, we've seen that happen from big publishers as well. They've advertised a game that looks fantastic, and when you get it, you put it in, you're like, what the hell is this?
Aliens, Colonial Marines.
Yes, Brink.
I'm like the only person in the universe who actually likes Colonial Marines. I don't think it was great, but I thought it was alright.
It was mediocre.
That's the thing, it was. I'd say it was slightly above mediocre, but I did play it after the patch, which I know addressed a lot of issues that people had with it, and it improved it. It took it from being mediocre to being above average, but only above average. And the problem isn't that it was terrible, it's that it wasn't perfect. Yeah. Anything they would have done with that game, if it wasn't perfect, people would have hated it anyway, because Aliens has such a huge following behind it. But what I was saying about the whole thing with things like Greenlight and Kickstarter is there is going to be a lot of crap that will come through there. But there will also be things that will come through there that otherwise wouldn't have. So it has its ups and its downs, its positives and negatives, and some people will abuse the system. Some people have already tried to. There have been things that have been taken off Greenlight because somebody found a publisher, and Valve then said that no, we won't publish you because we don't want you to use this as a fast track to it. We want you to put it on there because you're passionate about what you're doing, which maybe wasn't the best thing for Valve to do, but I can understand their principle. So there are always everything.
What would really help with these Steam Greenlight games is a demo. And in games in general, demos really help in, I don't want to sit there and pay $60 for a brand new spanking game and then find out that it's shit. A lot of these Kickstarters, if you pay enough into them, they will give you updates along the way, and so you know what you're getting into.
Yep, they'll give you alpha and beta and stuff like that.
Yeah, some actually do offer. I have noticed on some Steam Greenlight pages and even some Kickstarters, they actually do. Yeah, well, not even that. Some actually do offer a free demo without even, obviously paying. But of course, it depends on them.
But in reality, it should be mandatory.
Yeah.
I want to try out my product before I buy it.
It depends on the studio. Do they have the resources to make something like that? When it's first starting, you're going on there because you're hoping that you can get enough attention to keep going. Particularly with something like a Kickstarter, it's generally the stuff that's coming through there. The stuff we hear about tends to be stuff that already has work behind it because they've had the time to put that in and they can go and afford to start showing people. But Kickstarter and Greenlight really, at their core, are intended for people who just have concept. They don't always have. Sometimes they just have an idea. This is what we want to do. So,
and then they could get picked up by a publisher or a gaming company, a game company, and stuff like that.
Again, you pay your way, you take your chances. It would for Greenlight, though. I do agree that it would make a lot more sense for them to have more than just some very broad ideas of what they're doing. And there's some stuff that's already come out of Greenlight that's been really good, and there are others that show a lot of promise. And then there's some things on there you look and everybody's trying to do a lot of platform games. They think it'll be easier or like a bejeweled clone or something like that.
But back to the thing I was saying, there was I forgot what game it was. It got released and it was buggy as hell. It was unplayable. It would crash. It was not playable. You could not beat the first level, for example. I think it was that bad. And basically Valve is like, well, we can't give you your money back because you paid for it and you have a And that's the thing with Steam Greenlight, I think, that people are getting upset about, is people are releasing products that are incomplete so they can cash in on the hype and then run away, I guess you could say, with the cash.
Yeah, that is an area where Greenlight could be massively abused, because
it doesn't seem like Valve is taking the time to sit down and say, let our I wouldn't say it, let like a couple of playtesters from our company.
That's kind of the point
down.
of Greenlight, though, isn't it? So that Valve don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, somebody has to do quality assurance.
It has to be, because if somebody just gets like 500 of their friends, for example, to make a bunch of accounts and greenlight their product, they could release I don't even know. They could release
Colonial Marines.
No, not even Colonial Marines. They could release literally a Unity engine product that has nothing but a sphere that you walk around, for example.
Yeah.
And it would have to sell, because Steam, there was enough of the community that liked it, and Steam would have to publish it, because they cannot say no, because that's a violation of the contract that you go over before you put a game on Greenlight. So you're basically... Valve is basically doing their Hail Marys, and they're crossing their fingers, hoping that stuff like this doesn't happen, because they are so screwed if stuff happens like that, where people just release nothing and expect money.
Yeah, that is something that Valve have a bit of a habit of doing, though, is coming up with an idea and just sort of shoving it out the door and then seeing what happens. Look at Steam itself. When that first arrived, everybody hated it.
Oh, it was terrible.
Absolutely despised, but they made it work. This time, they seem to have that business model. It's like, here's the idea, do it, then see what happens. They're using us as guinea pigs to play test everything for them and give them money for the joy of doing that.
Yeah, you can definitely see...
They're very good at getting our money, but the thing that sets Valve apart from a lot of people is that they do fix things afterwards. If Greenlight ends up being abused too much, it probably will die like the dodo. I'm just hoping it doesn't, because I still think it has the potential to be something much larger. It takes away a lot of the video game industry, the business model we have now, where the developers go to the publisher and then the publisher decides what's happening, and they strangle the little developer and they keep everything for themselves.
It's like
it's not good.
It's like a 30-70 cut with
exactly
publishers nowadays.
And so many developers fall down when they've made a great game and the publisher have just screwed them out of everything, and then the developer shuts down and the publisher gets all the money and all the credit.
And then the publisher just released... I remember seeing a picture, and it was a picture of EA, and it's a picture of a firing squad, and where the people are names of dead companies like THQ.
They're notorious for it.
And then you just see EA pull the trigger and execute them, and then you see EA walk away, and you see these hundreds of dead bodies with the company's names over them. And I was like, that's sadly kind of true.
They buy a studio, they get them to squeeze out a game, they shut them down, and then that's it. They're gone.
Because if you think about it, it is geniusly evil what they do, because they buy a studio, have that studio make a game, that game sells, close the company a year later, so they close that company so they don't have to in turn give profit back to that company that they closed. I'm sure there's some kind of deal where they have to give some, but they don't have to give them as much profit, which saves EA money, which in that long term could take that money to open a new studio and just keep repeating the cycle, I guess you could say. It's a monopoly corporation that it's just you can hate it, but in a way they are so evilly
it's efficient,
smart.
It's an incredibly intelligent business model. It's just so
pure evil.
It's pretty evil.
An abhorrent way of doing it.
And it's not even just EA; it's Activision, all the big publishers.
A lot of them are like that.
But
Ubisoft recently with Desilets, I think his name is. They brought him back
Yes.
from Montreal, and then they kicked him out. The thing is, with the rise of the internet now, and with people being far more willing to stand up and say this is what happened, it used to be all done behind closed doors and nobody knew about it, but now people will come out and say, you know what, no, this is wrong. It can't last, and some of them just don't seem to realise that. EA don't understand why we hate them so much. It's not what they do, it's the way they do it, and their attitude about it.
Well, it's not. Yeah, I think they do sort of know, like, that they do, understand, like, sort of why they, like, why we sort of hate them or dislike them rather. But it's not. I think they're sort of trying to ignore it rather than,
More
try to
that they
address
don't
it.
care.
Yeah, it's rather
As
like
long
that.
as they keep getting the money out of our pockets.
Yeah, these companies are making so much money, they really don't care if people dislike them or not. They're just going to keep doing the thing they're doing because it gets them money. They hype something up. People are like, oh my god, this is going to be so great. I'll forgive you this time, and then it turns out to be shit, or sometimes it is a good game, and then the cycle just keeps going because people want their entertainment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's true.
And EA holds a lot of good franchises, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
They
so
hold
that's
Star
true.
Wars, and Star Wars is my childhood, so I'm
On the plus
hoping out
side-
for it. Well, hold on one sec. When it comes to the Star Wars thing, I talked about it briefly a couple podcasts ago, and what I was talking about was how EA, it's a make or break for EA, because Star Wars
Definitely.
is as big or bigger than, like, Aliens, Colonial Marines, for example.
Mhm.
Oh,
It could
massively so.
It could make or break their entire company.
On the
Yeah.
plus side, although EA are publishing it, BioWare and DICE are doing the developing.
Yes.
And of the EA studios, those are two of the best. Even since joining EA, BioWare are still putting out really good games.
Yes,
Not
I
as
agree.
good as they used to, perhaps, but they're still very good games.
Oh yes.
I agree. That's why I said it's going to be a make or break. For example, since Star Wars Battlefront's the first announced game under their publishing group, that game right there, it's going to make or break EA.
All they need
And
to
it's
do with
it's
that-
even going to make or break DICE, because if it
Yeah.
bombs, DICE can kiss their ass goodbye. They're going to be shutting down that new LA studio. They're going to lose their jobs, basically, because EA is going to say, well, you didn't publish a good enough game, goodbye, we're going to take all your money from the game that you made that was a failure, and we're not going to give you little to nothing of it, so goodbye. So DICE,
What they need to do
is
they need to make Battlefield Star Wars. If they do that, that'll be it. That's what they really
Oh,
need to do.
God.
They need to do what they're good at.
yeah, that's...
If they
Mm-hmm.
the problem that we could see here is that they might try and do something different because it's Star Wars. No, stick at what they're good at. If they literally just port Star Wars into Battlefield and give you lightsabers and blasters, and change the tanks for walkers and change the airplanes for X-wings, perfect.
Mhm.
That's what you need. Whether they'll do that, well, time will tell.
I
Time will
agree
tell.
and disagree. I agree that they should keep the mechanics of what makes Battlefield, because Battlefield, when Star Wars Battlefront came out, I believe it was basically a clone of Battlefront. Or Battlefield.
Exactly.
And because Battlefield 1942 just came out, I think 2142 or whatever that game was just coming out around that time of 2005, and basically they were just copying it, which it worked very well. Like DICE can add the third person, because everybody loved the third person. It made the game, because the first person angle was terrible.
Yeah.
And Battlefront 1 and 2, but I hope that's what they do. Just add destruction and do what you're good at. If it ain't broke, if it ain't broke,
Don't fix
yeah,
it.
basically.
Just Star Warsify Battlefield rather than trying to make something from the ground up. Is what I mean.
They should. Yes, they should stick with what they're good at. But a lot of companies these days seem to be doing FPSs as just it's just everybody's doing it. You know, there's Battlefield, Call of Duty, and all these other FPSs, and I'm kind of sick of it. I want to see something innovative. I want to see something new. I want to see more RPGs, for instance, or something like that. Instead of all of these Call of Battlefield, Modern Warfare, Black Ops 50s, you know?
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it makes money, so they're gonna
It
keep
does make
doing it.
Money, but
Activision
people-
is. I could picture Activision HQ, like their toilet papers are made out of $500 bills, and their CEOs literally walk into work and they're like they walk into their office and all you see is just stacks and stacks of millions and millions of dollars from milking Call of Duty and literally releasing the same thing every year for how many years now?
When they enter the studio, they have Hawaiian dancing girls throwing confetti.
Yes.
Only it's not confetti; it's rolled up $50 bills.
Don't forget wearing the money clothes as well.
Yes, yes, and they have like the pimp cane and everything. The
Made
top
out of
hats.
solid gold with zebra print on it, and
Yes, that's Activision right now, and they're just gonna keep doing it because that's what makes them money. And Infinity
and
Ward
it's
and
really sad.
and Treyarch, they're not gonna quit it because
it's sad, but I play
money.
first-person
Yeah.
shooters as well. In fact, just recently, Metro
It's really
Last Light,
sad, and
I gave it a 5 out of 5 because it was that good.
Mhm.
It's the
and
problem
it's really
we have.
sad that, you know, there's a lot of things in place that are continuing these things, like Metacritic. You know,
Yeah.
these poor companies are based on what they get on Metacritic, because you know these journalism sites. It's basically the journalism sites are the fate of these games. If you get below a certain Metacritic score,
nobody's gonna buy it.
It's really sad. You know, and it's just we as journalists are just this is just our opinion. This is not something that everybody
Yeah.
and I don't know. It just floors me how we have to grade. You know, we have to be in grade school and still grade things based on what a few people think about it.
It's
There's a
basically
lot of professionalism as well. It's like gamers are a notorious reactionary bunch. BioWare with Mass Effect 3, people didn't like one thing about it. 0, the worst game ever made.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
it's not. You just happen to like that one particular part of it, validly or not. It's not a 0 game, and people do that. And then they'll look at the big title and they'll give it like 9.5 out of 10 because it's the big title and they want to keep getting their games. It's
basically anything below an 8 in your game's not gonna sell.
yeah.
Do I?
Anything above a 9.5 and it won't sell because nothing is perfect.
Do I happen to remember Obsidian, or I think it was Obsidian, that they didn't actually get like a certain like big bonus because they didn't reach like a certain meta score? Do I remember something like that?
Honestly, believe it or not, I've done a little bit of research. They have marketing departments that are literally paid to fake reviews and pay bots and advertising, basically fake reviewers to make sure their game sells. That's what their marketing department does, because if you have a 9 attached to your title, that's buku bucks right there. Why do you think there was that IGN scandal a long time ago? I forgot the guy that did it, but there was a publisher basically saying, hey, we got a few $100s here, you want it? It can be a bonus for you. It's like a dog with a toy, basically, and you're you're teasing him, and you're like, oh, well, you can get it if you give us a 9, for example.
They don't even do it with money anymore. It's like, give us a 9 or we won't give you the game.
It's not even that. It's like, we'll blackmail you.
Yeah.
And we'll say this about your company, or we'll say this about your reviewers, or we'll say this or that, and it's like, it's basically...
Give us the score, we'll sue you for talking about our game, because it's our intellectual property and you're breaching copyright.
Exactly, NDA and NDA stuff like that, and it's outrageous how much money and corporation and greed there's around basic entertainment nowadays. Why do you think the movie industry is failing? because they're doing the exact same thing the gaming industry has just started to do recently in the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years. And basically you're going to see the decline of gaming, and you're going to see the rise of indie developers and self-publishing, because the publishers are digging themselves a grave in the long term. They are thinking like Microsoft is, which is, what can we get short term? What can we cash in the fastest? And they're not.
How much money can we make right now?
Yes, how much can we make initial launch cycle of something? And they don't think long term.
I would have to sort of disagree with the indie developers just for one singular reason, because I've been to a couple of events, and I see these indie developers, and I see some of the same things that the big companies are doing. They're just
of course. There is a lot of that as well.
I mean about the games, like they're not doing anything innovative. Like you said, there's a lot of platforms, and it's like at first when I discovered the indie scene, I'm like, oh my god, wow, there's so many, these indie developers are so smart. They've got all these different ideas, and then as things have progressed, it's just changed to
the difference with the indies though is if they keep doing that, and most of them are going to fail because people will get sick of seeing it. When it's a big publisher, they can afford to make that crappy game and then still keep going on afterwards. The thing that a lot of the indie devs don't seem to realize is that if they don't sell, that's it. They think that, everybody's buying stuff like this, so we'll do it too. And no, it doesn't work that way. It works that way for the big companies because they're big companies. They have the money to throw at it. They have the advertising. If you don't have the money to do that, you just... So it's still going to happen. Some people are still going to do it. They're going to think it's a great idea. I can kind of make an easy boat like this. But the thing is, those ones will just fizzle out, and we'll end up left with the ones that actually do something interesting and do really put the effort in.
Yes.
But it's never going to go away. Some people just don't have any originality.
Do any of you personally think, like, on the indie scene, there might be, like, a tad too many 2D platformers? Like, there's...
Definitely.
Because it's easy to make and easy to program.
Exactly. If you're just starting out, it's cheap. So I can give some leeway with that, as long as they make something interesting. If they put a decent idea behind it. I played The Swapper recently. That was an indie title. And it was just another 2D platformer. But the concept behind it was... fantastic. The atmosphere was incredible. So I'm not really usually into platform games, but I started that one up and I finished it in one sitting. Not because it was short, although it's like 4 hours long, but it's just I was hooked. I just didn't want to stop playing. So just because it's X type of game doesn't immediately make it a bad idea.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is there are a lot of them that are coming out that are just the same thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's cheap because development cycles, they cost a lot of money for your licensing fees for music, licensing fees for sound effects, licensing fees for the animations. For example, if you buy a lot of stock footage, or if you buy a lot of stock animations or stock entities that you need to import to your game, textures, everything, it's just a giant list of money. And 2D, so if you look at 2D versus 3D, like 3D, you have to render an entire 3D model, while it's basically cutting it in half, basically, I guess you could say.
There is a give and take. There has to be some, when it's a new person just starting out, you have to give them a lot more concessions if they're going to get any. Well, you don't have to, but I mean, I always encourage that if it's somebody who is brand new and it's one guy doing it on their own and they're coming up with something that looks like it's a carbon copy of everything else, give them some concessions there to understand the fact that they're doing it on their own. They don't have the money, but that only works so far. If they just continue to if they just literally cut and paste, like, I don't know, if they cut and paste 10 levels from Mario and it's like, no, go away. At least try and put something interesting in it. I don't know, make the guy jump higher, give them an extra item that does something different. At least try and put a bit of diversity into it. I mean, otherwise, why are you doing it in the first place if you just want to make what somebody else has already done? But there is a certain amount of, we should give them give them enough rope to hang themselves, as they say.
And this is the Indie Developers Podcast, Episode 1. Where we know nothing of what we're talking about. Like, for example, like if if there's an engine, for example, because you have to have an engine to start out with. So picture you're a game developer, you have to get an engine, you have to get entities, and you need to get textures. Which, believe it or not, textures, they go for a few $100s each. If you want really good, high-quality textures, you need to pay for sound licensing, because you will be sued to shit if you use any kind of, I wouldn't say copyrighted music, but sounds can be copyrighted.
Licensed music.
Sounds, audio
actually,
files.
sounds can be.
And
that infamous trash can and cat meow that we see in hundreds of films.
Yeah, that's copyrighted.
You have to pay for that.
You have to pay for it.
You have to actually pay for that. It's only something like $1 or something stupid like that, but you have to do it.
And it just adds up over time.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to pay for the licensing fee for the engine that you're using, because the engine developers need money. So you have to buy that. So there you go. You got like your spreadsheet of how much your total cost would be. So you got your engine, and then below that you got to put your sound file. So let's say you got 40, 50 sounds. There's an extra $100, $200. So you got like $500 for your licensing. Another $100 for sounds. You need to get your textures, which are anywhere from $300 to $400. You're up to $1,000 already, and that's just with a 2D engine, 2D game engine.
Well,
and it's just, it adds up.
I think it is possible if. I think it's possible if you're a programmer, you can make your 2D engines are. I would, if like, say you're not making a platformer, say you're something like going back to like Zelda 1 and just making something where you move around, that's kind of fairly easy. You have to have your character that moves around, and with a wall, you have to make sure that it is coded correctly so that it says, oh, well, this is a wall, you can't go into it. So that, in my opinion, would be fairly easy to code if you had a lot of time.
I could see
and
that.
And then there are programs out there. There are programs out there to where you can make your own sound effects.
I'm sure there is, and I could.
The if was the important part. If you have the time.
Yeah.
And time on its own is money. You need money to live. You need money to have the time to be able to do it. Which is why I'm saying we give them some leeway, but
I guess I can see what he's saying, but at the same time, you have to pay to go to a recording studio, for example, to get that high quality sound that you could pay just like $3 for, in between gas and time going in between.
Well, like the. Oh, go ahead.
It depends on how you want them to be. I mean, if you want to do like a throwback 8-bit style one, that is a lot cheaper. But then, how do you make it stand out? That's very much a niche thing, and I think what we're coming back to here again is people looking at the immediate. They want something to make a lot of money quickly. They don't always have the patience or the time or the knowledge to start with something really small that might only sell a couple hundred units and make them a few $1,000s, which they then put into something else, which might make them $10,000, and so on and so on and so on. And I suppose it's about the patience, really. Some people don't have the patience to do that. And some people do.
I could see that, definitely. For example, like if you're making a game on the Unity engine, the licensing fees are extremely expensive because that is a 3D engine. Because basically they have a student edition, which is basically you'd use it for like if you're going to school for computer graphics and design. And they say, well, what the hell, you can use it for your college courses. But if you want to publish that game and sell it and distribute it, you have to pay a licensing fee, which I don't know. It's expensive as hell. I know that because the game.
Can't fault them for it, though. I mean, they want to be paid for their work.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of work that goes into creating a custom-made engine. I would definitely want money out of that as well. Because
I want people getting money for your work.
Basically, because the game I'm working for and I'm overing for runs on the Unity engine. And it was development hell for almost a year because the guys are from Australia, and it was just one guy screwing around on the Unity engine, and now it created basically it's a green-lit game on Steam now.
Nice.
And it's coming out in September. It's coming out on the Amazon Indie Store So we got advertisement from Amazon as
Oh, yeah, I
well.
forgot about
I
Amazon.
see.
It was it was one of the 4 launch titles that are coming out for that specific. So which is really cool because we're going to be one of the first games to do it. But anyways, it was development hell. We had to go through Kickstarters. We raised like a few $1,000s here, a few $1,000s there, and we're barely cutting it. So we're up to. I got paid like directly from him, so he has to pay his voice actors. He has to pay his artists to do custom art. He has to pay his sound design. He had to pay for studio sound, studio time for his son to go record the credits.
He has to pay for his dinner,
Yeah,
his electricity
yeah,
bill,
he has
his
to pay.
internet.
Yeah, for his internet, he has to pay for all
People
the
don't factor in
household,
things like that.
the whole household, because he's married and he has 2 other kids, so he has to pay for his kids. He has to pay for gas, and it's just it's a lot of money.
People
Yeah.
just don't factor
Yeah.
in simple
You're
things like
talking
that. And
about
it's like,
50-60 grand a year you're investing
Yeah.
into this game, and when
and then you look
yeah.
at it and you're like, I have this money here to pay for the engine, and then you're like, great, and then you're like,
yeah, and you
what
look
happened to my lights? Oh, I forgot to pay my electricity bill.
and then you look
It
at
can happen.
you look at your Kickstarter and you're like, and other people look at it and you're like, well, you raised like $2,000. I'm like, well, that's great. That's like 3 months worth of stuff I can do now.
3 months?
Yeah, basically 3.
That's a little bit. That's
3 months of a game
month,
dedication I can focus on, and it's pretty. People don't grasp
ambitious. That's
that.
what I was looking for. 3 months for $2,000 is ambitious.
Yeah. So I can definitely understand indie developer frustration. But at the same time, I can definitely see publishers using them. But
Yeah,
we
they
basically went into a whole discussion about publisher indie versus indie. But I don't know. That's my point of view on everything. So.
Yeah. And we seem to have run over as well, so I think it's about time we wrapped this one up.
Yeah, I would agree as well, because I have to go eat dinner because it's almost 6 o'clock here, and
I need a cup of tea.
yeah, and
I've
Certainly
gone an
do.
entire hour and a half without a cup of tea.
you can have some toast.
Oh yes, definitely toast.
Nom, 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 nom.
But my name is CatAttack123, and I was joined by Andrew L. and Toast, and we are from PixelJudge.com, and we will see you guys later.
Ciao.